Item 1, opening prayer and statement of acknowledgement. Councillors, if you care to stand, please. Almighty God, we pray for your blessing upon this council. Help and prosper its work for the advancement and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established among us all. Amen.
Amen.
Manningham City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of the land we now know as Manningham. We pay our respects to Wurundjeri elders past and present and value the ongoing contribution to the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council would also like to acknowledge the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. I welcome all members of the public to this council meeting this evening who have joined us to observe proceedings, especially online. I would like to advise that tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. It is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image or voice is broadcast by council. In terms of the operation of the meeting, all council meetings are governed by meeting procedure local law. I will introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda, calling it by number and reading by the title. I will then call for a mover and seconder of a motion on the item before opening any debate. Only councillors are able to join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments and supplementary motions. I would like to draw your attention to item 7 on tonight's agenda, public question time, which provides people with an opportunity to ask questions of council. We have some questions that have been registered prior to the commencement of this evening's meeting, and we'll attend to those at that point in the meeting. Item 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. There are no apologies. Item 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. No prior notifications of conflict of interest have been received, councillors. Would anyone like to give prior notification of such a conflict at this time? Thank you, councillors. There being none, we'll proceed. Item 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Galbally.
I'd like to move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 24th of March 2020 be confirmed.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Chen. Councillor Galbally.
Nothing to add.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those for? Those against? That is carried. Item 5, presentations. 5.1, condolence motion, my apologies. Former Mayor and Councillor Keith Remington. Councillors, it is with deep sadness that I must inform you of the recent passing of a former Mayor and Councillor Keith Remington. Mr Remington served as a councillor for the City of Doncaster and Templestowe from 1966 to 1972, including one term as Mayor in 1969-1970. So I have a mover for a condolence motion. Councillor Haynes.
Mr Mayor and councillors, I'd like to move that council place on record the sadness and regret at the recent passing of Mr Keith Remington. Record its appreciation for the contribution by Mr Remington during his term as Mayor and Councillor for the City of Doncaster and Templestowe, and extend its sympathy and condolences to Mr Remington's family at this very difficult time.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kleiner. Councillor, I'll put that motion for. If you could acknowledge your agreement by standing. Wait. Thank you, councillors. Item 5.2. Councillors, on behalf of council, I would like to express our deepest condolences to the Victoria Police on the death of 4 police officers following the tragic incident on the Eastern Freeway on Wednesday 22nd of April. We especially extend our sympathies to the family and friends of the officers who lost their lives in the line of duty. Our council is incredibly saddened by this news and acknowledges the dedication of Victoria Police and their service to the Manningham community and to the wider community of Victoria. Councillors, I'd like us to acknowledge this particular moment in our meeting, if we could, on behalf of the families in our community, by standing for a minute's silence, if you'd please. Thank you, councillors. Item 5.3, acknowledgement of the retirement of Doreen Stowes. On behalf of my fellow councillors, I would like to formally acknowledge Doncare's retiring CEO, Doreen Stowes, AM, PSM, JP, and her contribution to the Manningham community. As you will know, Doreen has led Doncare over the last 19 years, 19 exemplary years, in developing strong links and partnerships within the service systems in Manningham and beyond. Through Doreen's leadership, Doncare has enhanced the quality of life of people living in Manningham through providing counselling for people in crisis, support and recovery from family violence, social support for seniors and emergency relief. Doncare, under her stewardship, has developed a wide network of volunteers who are essential and integral to the operations of Doncare. Our council congratulates Doreen for an incredible 19 years with Doncare and wishes for her well in the future. And I'm sure all of those whose lives have been touched by her energy and compassion are grateful for her contribution to our city. Thank you for your service, Doreen. It's greatly appreciated. Item 5.4, acknowledgement again, councillors, of Greg Mitchell from the State Emergency Services. I would also like to acknowledge Mr Greg Mitchell, who is the former unit controller of the Manningham unit of Victorian State Emergency Service. Greg has invested some 36 years in protecting our city. His work has been integral to the development of the State Emergency Services Manningham unit, and it is, without doubt, one of the leading units in the state and has been working incredibly hard over recent months in the various storm events that we've had. And it's Greg's foundation contribution over many years that has enabled that unit to develop its capability and quality. On behalf of Council, I would like to thank Mr Mitchell for his dedication in serving our community and wish him well for the future. Item 6, petitions. 6.1, review of parking restrictions along 25 to 37 Macedon Road, Templestowe Lower. Do I have a mover for this matter? Councillor Piccinini.
I move that the petition with 56 signatories requesting the review of parking restrictions along 25 to 37 Macedon Road, Templestowe Lower, be received and referred through to the appropriate officer for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kleiner. Councillor Piccinini.
Nothing to add.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those for? Those against? That is carried. Item 6.2, Mayor and Councillor allowances. Do I have a mover for this particular matter? Councillor Haynes.
I move that the petition with 149 signatories from residents of Manningham and people from various locations across Australia and around the world objecting to the proposed increase in Mayor and Councillor allowances be received and considered by Council as a submission to the review of allowances.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder?
I second.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Haynes, anything to add?
No, nothing further.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? That is carried. Item 6.3, request for planning scheme amendment to remove SB01 from 28 properties. Do I have a mover for this particular matter? Councillor Kleiner.
That the petition with 23 signatories requesting Council to consider applying for a planning amendment to remove SB01 from 27 properties in Hellcroft Drive and 1 property in Newland Court, Templestowe, be received and referred through to the appropriate officer for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goff. Councillor Kleiner.
No.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? That is carried. Thank you. Item 7, public question time. A question has been submitted to tonight's meeting from Ms Stella Yee. At this time, anyone submitting a question to council is not required to be present in the chamber, and we will therefore read out Ms Yee's question prior to seeking a response. The question being put is, if council election goes ahead in October this year, this means that the deadline for permanent resident ratepayers to apply to enrol to be on the CEO's list of voters will be August, just 4 months from now. Given that in 2016 there were at least 8,000 such ratepayers in Manningham who did not know they had the entitlement to vote in council elections, what will council do to ensure that they are properly informed this time? When and how will this information be disseminated? I thank Ms Yee for her question, and as this question relates to elections, I will ask the CEO to please respond.
Thank you, Mayor. We understand the VEC are well aware of this issue from the 2016 election. We will be entering into a contract with the VEC shortly to conduct the 2020 election, and we will follow the VEC advice in relation to communications and advising the community of their voting entitlements.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Mr CEO, also during the week I received a letter from the Minister for Local Government advising us that he's determined that Manningham will, for the forthcoming election, be changing its structure so that it is 9 single-member wards rather than 3 multi-member wards. This is a pretty substantial change for our municipality, and as it is at this point in time, we don't actually know where our wards are or what the boundaries are, and indeed what even are the ward names. Is it possible that we could raise this issue with the Minister as well and the VEC?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, that's all correct. We were advised last week that we will be moving towards single-member wards. At this stage, we're not clear on what the timelines are in relation to determining those boundaries and names, so we are happy to prepare a letter to go to the Minister requesting some more information on timelines and process so we can inform the community.
That would be great. It would be good if our community knew what electorate they were in and candidates had an idea about where they might campaign. It would be helpful. Item 8, admission of urgent business. There are no items of urgent business.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move a motion to bring item 16.1, COVID-19 community financial relief measures forward, and for the item to be considered in the open meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. I'm happy to consider such a motion. Do you have a motion to put to the chamber?
Yes, I would like to move a motion that Council considers item 16.1, COVID-19 community financial relief measures next on the agenda, and declare the information contained in item 16.1 is no longer confidential information, and the report be considered in the open meeting of Council.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder for this procedural motion? Councillor Conlon. Being a procedural motion, I will put the motion. Those for? Those against? That is carried. We'll therefore consider item 16.1 immediately. 16.1, COVID-19 community financial relief measures. There is a report that has been made available to you, councillors. As we've just declared that particular report no longer confidential, the report is being posted onto our website to be made available to members of the community, as it normally would have at the end of the meeting anyway. Do I have a mover for the motion contained in that report? Councillor Zafiropoulos.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Council, A, endorses the proposed COVID-19 community financial relief measures as outlined in Section 2 of this report. B, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to negotiate and vary leases and licences with council tenants in accordance with the financial relief measures endorsed by council or federal or state legislation as applicable. C, notes the financial impact of the associated measures will be accounted for in the 2019-2020 forecast and the proposed 2020-2021 budget. And D, endorses the 2020-21 budget adoption to be delayed by 1 month and presented to Council for adoption in the July Council meeting cycle.
Thank you, Councillor Zafiropoulos. Do I have a seconder for this particular matter? Councillor Piccinini. Councillor Zafiropoulos.
Yes, this pandemic has affected not only the Manningham community, but the whole world. We don't, a day doesn't pass without us hearing from media all over the world, and in particular our media here in Australia, how devastating this pandemic has been for the world. It has affected everyone, and that includes the city of Manningham. As a result, all levels of government, federal, state and local government, have undertaken some special measures, in particular to address the negative impact that this pandemic has had on people and businesses and clubs and community organisations, with particular focus on the vulnerable amongst those people. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people had to close their businesses, and it wasn't hard for this council to consider this very, very seriously, and with the support of staff to identify both criteria for equitable distribution that took into account not only what had to be provided to people, but also ensuring the sustainability of this council, which has, I think I should mention this, has worked so hard over recent times to make sure that we were in such a positive situation in a financial sense, that we were able to show some generosity in these difficult times. So Council has considered a number of measures. I'm not going to go into details other than to say the federal government already has provided millions of dollars, and so has the state. Our local government, City of Manningham, has provided $3.8 million. That is a substantial amount, unplanned, and yet it is not going to have a strong impact on us for a number of reasons that I've mentioned before, but also because the officers have undertaken a number of reviews of expenditure. They have cut costs everywhere they could. They have even allocated people that do office work to go and clean up streets and do other jobs in order for us to be able to save money. And officers should be congratulated for coming up with all these measures. The only thing I would like to mention, as this is going to be publicised widely, and all the organisations affected will be notified, as well as the community. I'm not going to go into details other than to say that we've identified 4 groups that we consider have been affected adversely: ratepayers and the community, local businesses, clubs and community organisations, and we've also expanded significantly the Community Relief Fund up to $1 million to cater and partner with organisations that already provide funding to the vulnerable. So $1.6 million will be allocated to the ratepayers. Businesses will get $0.38 million. Older residents will get $0.38 million. Local businesses will get $0.23 million, as well as $0.1 million for local business development programs. Clubs and community organisations will get $0.45 million. And as I mentioned before, $1 million, up to $1 million, will be made available for us to partner. So that's basically what it is in the time allocated to me. The rest of the information and the details will be publicised as of tomorrow.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Piccinini.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Councillor Zaparopoulos has given a very detailed submission. So I'll just go over the 5 parts to the package. So there's first $1.6 million of relief for ratepayers in terms of rates, fines, charges. This is made up of, firstly, with the latest quarterly rate payment. That's now not due until the 30th of June. It's usually due in May. People who are in receipt of, who have a low-income healthcare card, they will have an increase in their rate rebate. We'll also augment and refine our hardship provisions for repayment of rates. And more significantly, there'll be no increase in the rate services charge for the next financial year, despite the state government possibly increasing the land levy charges.
The waste services charge?
In the waste services charge, yes. That's what I've got in my notes. Yeah. Okay. Secondly, the second part of the relief package is $380,000 for support for our older residents, our vulnerable older residents. And this can be made up in a number of different ways, such as enhancing our Meals on Wheels services, Meals on Wheels, and also other services that we provide to older residents. The third is $230,000 relief for local businesses, and this is made up of a 50% discount in a string of fees, including footpath trading permits, registration fees for food and health providers, and also trader parking permits. So all of those fees will be reduced by half. The fourth section is $450,000 relief for our sporting clubs. And I think this is really significant because there are lots of sporting clubs, soccer, hockey, football, netball in our municipality that aren't playing sport necessarily, that have struggled to collect fees. And for the winter season, council is saying, well, this season there will be no lease payments. And we will also, so you can use the pavilions and facilities for free, including the sporting grounds. So there are some sporting ground fees for some clubs, like football. Those sporting ground fees that we normally charge will be waived, and that will be a significant relief to our sporting clubs in this municipality. And our MC squared community tenants will also have a rent-free period. And finally, as Councillor Zaparopoulos mentioned, the fifth part of the relief package is $1 million community relief fund. And this fund is for people most in need, and that this monies will be distributed to, will be used to assist people who are, short of shelter, food, all those essential basic needs. So after much discussion and deliberation by councillors and the officers over approximately 3 strategic briefing sessions, we've come up with an excellent package that complements the relief packages and measures put in by the state and federal government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Klein.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to point out that there's no increase applied to the waste service charge for ratepayers in 2021. Now, this is despite significant increase in cost to council to be proposed a 30% increase from the state government, which comes on to us. We then have to pass on to the ratepayers. The State Minister, Lily D'Ambrosio, recently said that increase that was to come in on July 1st of this year has been delayed for 6 months to January 2021. But I think I've got that correct by memory. And that, but we've proposed that we're not increasing that in our 2021 for ratepayers. We're of the belief that we need to talk to state government and say, you need to wear that extra charge that's coming in January 2021. Just to put it simply, the standard charge for a ratepayer is $263.50, which includes on average about $92 to pay the land levy at the landfill levy.
So that's the
and gate fees.
The waste charge.
Waste charge. That's the total waste charge for the whole year in a financial year, and about 92 of that goes to gate fees, goes to the state government. We pay the state government on behalf of the ratepayers, and within 3 years this will grow from $92 to $155.74 to the state government. We collect it, but it doesn't go to our, we pass it on. We're passing on a tax. So we're freezing that. It's a decision of council. And with that, we ask that the state government realise in these times, which this is not going to be over financially for us in the short term. So in January to be paying that increase is just really not realistic in this climate. So this is something that we've looked at as a council. We've said that we're not, we made that decision before the state government made that change. of deferral of 6 months, but we're adamant that we can't pass that on to our ratepayers, and we're endorsing that we don't, and that we need to seek further. I'm asking, actually, if I may, that the Mayor then write on behalf of Council to the state government and say that we won't be paying that extra increase when it comes in January, if I can add that.
Certainly, I'm sure
That
we
would
will
be
write to the
accepted?
Minister and see if we can get them to delay the imposition of this increase, because
Thank you.
taking it to over $150 out of a $300 charge, I think we're going to be at 45% of what we collect for waste charges will be going to the state government, which is just incredibly onerous on our community, on businesses. It'll affect businesses right across the state. Are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Great. I will then put this particular motion, 16.1. Those, please. If there wasn't any speakers against, Mike. So
No right to reply with no speaker
I'm
against.
fine.
thank you. So I will put the motion. Those for. Those against. That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 9, planning permit applications. There are no planning permit applications. Item 10, city planning and community. 10.1, Heritage Advisory Committee review of terms of reference. Do I have a mover for this particular matter? Councillor Zafiropoulos.
I move that the motion be adopted.
The recommendation.
Recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Zafiropoulos. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Galbally. Councillor Zafiropoulos.
This particular report came about because the Council Heritage Advisory Committee, at one of its meetings, considered changing the terms of reference to include Reconciliation Manningham, a local group, as one of the members of the committee. Now, officers have considered this seriously, and they're recommending that this should not be done. And the reasons for it are because there is an organisation, the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung Cultural Heritage, an organisation which has been given the authority by the Aboriginal Heritage Act 2006 to represent the heritage interests of the Indigenous community here at Manningham. Consequently, it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for having two voices, sometimes with the possibility of contradiction at a committee meeting. One represents the local group, and the other represents the group that the Heritage Act has appointed as being responsible for that purpose. So it wasn't difficult for the officers to make this recommendation and to convey to Reconciliation Manningham, whilst we value their contribution to Manningham's affairs as far as Indigenous issues is concerned. When it comes to heritage, there's another organisation assigned with that task, and it would be improper, if not illegal, for the City of Manningham to consider other views. The other issue, we took advantage of revising the terms of reference, and now the Heritage Committee terms of reference are based on the universal guidelines that apply to all the other advisory committees. That's basically it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Galbally.
Yeah, just one last point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is Point B, I just need to reiterate this as being the main part of Council's answer, is that it is not supporting the request to include Reconciliation Manningham as a heritage group on Council's Heritage Advisory Committee, and the basis for that is that it has no legislative authority to advise on Aboriginal matters, as this is solely the responsibility of the Wurundjeri Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation, which is classified as called the corporation. And so that's the main reason, but also we have to acknowledge the fact that Reconciliation Manningham has already got a representative on the committee as a council, as a community representative, and so they do still have an input, and they're welcome to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers in respect to the motion? In that case, I will put the motion. Those for? Against? That is carried. Item 11, City Services. 11.1, Annual Environment Report 2018-2019. Do I have a mover for this particular item? Councillor Kleiner.
That the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder?
I second.
Councillor Chen. Councillor Kleiner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is the annual Environment Report of 2018-19. It's to be released for public presentation. It's basically an overview of Council's achievements in the previous financial year. It outlines our delivery of environmental initiative programs, advocacy and projects. And there is some really great news stories which is good for the community to know. And some of the highlights include our energy sustainability. We surpassed our 20% of council greenhouse gas emissions reduction target from 2008 to 2009 to 2020. We added 18 hybrid cars to the fleet and introduced a new efficient fleet management system, biodiversity, the weed, pest and animal control, bushfire risk reduction work has been undertaken. That includes pest deer control and monitoring program, which we have a problem in our area with deer. But that's we've worked with the state government very well on that. Community engagement has delivered over 150 programs, touching about 7,500 community members, which I think's fantastic, on helping them reduce the environmental impact. Waste reduction, diverted, I love this one, we diverted 55% of our waste away from landfill, resulting in our lowest ever waste to landfill since 2001-2002. So that's a pretty amazing achievement for us that really should have front page of the newspapers, being that that's 20 years where in 20 years ago they were putting more to landfill than they are today, and we, I believe in the future, will divert even more as we move to those state government initiatives on the 4 bins in the near future. The water sustainability, improve sport ground irrigation water use for more efficiency, and basically the report has gone from a 24-page report down to an 8-page with more visual, making it user-friendly for people to read and understand and see, you know, that we are working very hard, and that's been in the last year. Since a lot of that work's been done, we've even, I believe, as a council, have moved even more into that space as our desire with some of our recent motions that have been passed that are really in that space. So I think it's a great report. Commend the officers for their work on that, and seek that there be approval to pass that.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Chen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to emphasize that a healthy environment is essential to human health. At the local government level, Council is taking the lead in tackling climate change. The annual environment report provides an insight of the works we have achieved and what we will focus on during the current financial year. But each individual has a duty of care to our environment. And collectively, we can make a difference. There are many simple things that we can do, such as take public transport, walk or cycling whenever possible, and reduce plastic, plant more trees, save energy, just to name a few. I encourage our residents to take part in Council's environment initiatives. Visit Council's website under the heading Environment and Sustainability to be part of the Council's Smart Living initiatives and take part in environmental events. And just like Councillor Clyden had mentioned, that the content and graphic design of the annual report will be improved to better engage with our community. It will be 8 pages, easy read document. Once the report is available, our residents can visit our website for the online version document or contact Civic Centre Customer Service to get a hard copy. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have any speakers against the motion or any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Zafiropoulos, for or against?
I just wanted to put on record that this council has passed a motion catering for the negative impacts of climate change, and that report was meant to be included in this environment report. My understanding is that officers are working in that report and will be presenting it in a matter of weeks as a separate independent report. It will relate to this, obviously, because of the nature of the two reports. And I'd like to finish by saying this council needs to be congratulated for some of the significant achievements in this area. So our people should be very happy for what we've been able to achieve.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Given you spoke in support of the motion, I will not ask the mover to resum. I'll put the motion. Those for. Those against. That is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 12, shared services. There are no shared services report. Item 13, Chief Executive Officer. 13.1, determination of mayoral and councillor allowances.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move with a Part D.
You'd like to move an alternate motion, certainly,
I'd like to move, yes, an alternate motion, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion, which is what is on the recommendation that's been published with A, B and C, but include a Part D, and that says, note the COVID-19 economic response package endorsed by Council of up to $3.8 million to provide relief during this period to ratepayers, community organisations, local businesses and other vulnerable groups adversely affected by this crisis. If that could be...
Certainly, councillor, that's fine. Thank you for that. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Haynes. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just thought I'd do a real brief recap of this particular issue. In December last year, the Minister of Local Government wrote and informed us that we were now not a Category 2 council, but a Category 3 council. And so in response to that, in February, we advertised as part of the due process of, and it's a process of government, going out to public consultation. We went out in the February meeting. We didn't want to go out in the January meeting or earlier than that because we didn't want to do it during a holiday period. We wanted council to be back and everybody back and functioning well. That process is a statutory process that we have to go through a number of different events with it, and part of that is public consultation. So from that particular point, we put out to the community the increase that was being sought because we had moved from a Category 2 council to a Category 3 council and to be in comparison to the surrounding councils. But subsequent, Mr. Mayor, to that going out in February, we've been under and overwhelmed by a COVID-19 crisis that has enveloped the world. And we have, I suppose, looked at our responses. And the earlier motion tonight looked at a whole lot of responses with regard to what we're going to be doing as part of our response to this situation at the time. So throughout this time, and it is a process that actually culminates now, and now is the time that council and councillors actually make their decision, and it was always set out for this particular meeting for that decision to be made. And council have undertaken, I suppose, due diligence and consideration of this particular matter over this particular time, listened to people for and against for when we went out to public consultation. And as part, I suppose, of our response to the COVID-19 situation, we believe that this is not the appropriate time to change our allowances. So in essence, this motion actually sets our allowances to what they were in the past 3 years. So it actually is maintaining that same level of allowance for us. However, we will look at it again after there's a new election coming up very, very soon in October. And so, you know, we've put it forward to after that because now really isn't the time for that. And that response, I suppose, is coming into, because of that COVID stuff, is our response to make more funds available for other things that are happening in our community. So, Mr Mayor, I hope all the councillors support this motion.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Haynes.
I don't want to speak on the motion, but I'm just wondering if, Mr Mayor, the actual motion could be read out so people that may not have got the agenda know exactly what we're doing. So there might be people out there in the public that think that we are passing a rise. So I'm just wondering if I could read the motion out without anything else to say, because he's done a great summary. I have it here in front of me.
Yep, I'm more than happy to have the entire motion read into.
So it's just the motion is that council, having moved into category 3 from category 2 by the Minister for the Local Government in December 2019, and having considered the submissions received in accordance with the section 74 and 223 of the Local Government Act, that A, note the significant change in circumstances which has arisen by the escalation of the COVID-19 health crisis since council first considered this matter at its meeting on February the 24th, 2020. B, resolve to defer the further consideration of this matter until the 15th of December 2020 council meeting, which is after the scheduled local government elections. And C, note that the deferral of this item has the effect of maintaining the current level of allowances until such time. And Councillor Goff has given a great summary and also added Department D. So I've nothing further to add.
Great, thank you. Now, I'm assuming all councillors are clear on the matter that's before them. Are there any other speakers? Any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers for the motion? Great, there being no other speakers, I will therefore put the motion. Those for? Those against? That is carried. I was waiting for a division, that's right. I was just seeing if anyone was going to call it.
You're right, man.
It's not my position to ask for it, Jeff.
Look, I'll call a division.
No. Thank you, councillor.
Oh, well,
The division has been called, councillors. I ask you to indicate your support for this motion. Those councillors for: Councillor Conlon, Councillor Piccinini, Councillor Kleinert, Councillor McLeish, Councillor Vapropoulos, Councillor Goff, Councillor Galbally, Councillor Haynes and Councillor Chen. Those against? There being none, that is passed unanimously. Item 13.2, Record of Assembly of Councillors. Do I have a move of this particular matter?
Yes.
Councillor Conlon.
Thank you. I'd like to move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder?
A second.
Councillor Chen. Councillor Conlon.
Nothing.
Thank you. I'll therefore put the motion. Those for? Against? That is carried. Item 13.3, documents for sealing. Do I have a mover?
I move.
Thank you, Councillor Chen.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Councillor Chen.
Nothing to add, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. Those for, those against, that is carried. Now, before we leave item 13, I just wanted to make an observation, councillors, about the manner in which the determination of mayoral and council allowances process has occurred. I have to admit that I was disappointed but unsurprised at a couple of the submissions that came forward from the public during this particular matter. There was one submission in particular that elected to single out some councillors and reflect upon those individual councillors poorly. And I have to admit that I'm very disappointed to see that coming through, because that submission came from a former councillor. And to have the names of current sitting councillors, what in my opinion was denigrating their contribution and performance, is incredibly disappointing, and it does not reflect reality. I know how the 9 councillors around this table work. I know what their contribution is, and to have the individual names of those councillors reflected poorly upon by a former councillor who hasn't been in the chamber, who hasn't been in the meetings, who hasn't been making the contribution, hasn't been seeing the work that you've all been putting in, I think is incredibly disappointing but unsurprising given the past history from that particular individual. So I'd like to assure the councillors who were reflected upon in that way that it's certainly not how I see your performance, and hopefully we won't see that sort of negative contribution occurring again. Particularly there was one councillor, Councillor Kleiner, who was reflected upon as someone who doesn't respond to emails and doesn't make a great contribution. Well, Councillor Kleiner's been a mayor and a deputy mayor in my time on council. They just finished a term as the president of the Australian Local Governments Women's Association, ALGWA, and has just been elected by that august body as the secretary to serve another term representing women councillors across the state of Victoria. She is held in very high regard in the community of councillors and in my experience in the Manningham community, as are all of the councillors who sit around this table. And I find it very disappointing that the ill-informed contribution by a former councillor reflecting poorly on those councillors should be somehow wrapped up in a submission about council allowances. If you want to make a contribution on council allowances, we are welcome. We welcome those submissions. We have listened to those submissions, we've heard them. But when you start using that as a vehicle to attack the councillors sitting around this table, I think that is most disappointing and is not the sort of practice that I would expect to occur from a former councillor. Anyway, councillors, I have had my say. We will move on with the rest of the agenda if we can. Item 14, matters of urgent business. There are no matters of urgent business. Item 15, councillors' question time. Councillors, do you wish to raise any questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Councillor
I would
Chen.
like to ask a question, please. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, in the past decade, household energy bills in Australia have increased sharply. Many households cannot absorb these increases and have been forced to minimise their energy costs and their spending on other essential services such as food and health. I know that from the 1st of January 2020, the Victorian default offer on energy increases by an average of 7.8% from its current value. Energy providers are expected to increase their prices accordingly. There are concerns from our senior community groups that they asked me to address their concerns here on behalf of them about the ongoing impacts to their health and limited disposable income as a result of the high energy bills. Mr. Mayor, they asked, and I'm here to ask the question, and are we able to write to the relevant government agencies and the energy providers to seek more assistance, such as subsidy increase or service charge discount, to help the vulnerable groups in our community? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. We will take that question on notice. I'm sure we'll be able to write to to those particular organisations and seek some further relief for these vulnerable sections of our community. And I think we'll also be able to find a way to promote through our council media channels some of the opportunities that exist for that particular segment in our community to apply for discounts from the government departments where it's possible. Because I believe there are, for those particular segments of our community, some opportunities available in the current climate which aren't ordinarily available. So we will be doing what we can to promote those utility relief grant schemes more widely in our community. Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions, councillors? Thank you, councillors. That moves us to item 16, confidential reports. We have a number of confidential reports to consider in the meeting this evening. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Galbally.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that the council close the meeting to the public pursuant to section 89 2D and E and H of the Local Government Act 1987 to consider item 16.2, Melbourne Hill Road catchment easement acquisition. Item 16.3, land acquisition for open space, and item 16.4, land acquisition for open space concerning contractual matters. Proposed developments and matters which the council considers would prejudice the council or any person.
Thank you, councillor. There's a motion before us, councillors. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kleinert. It's a procedural motion, so we'll put them. Is there an issue?
Yeah, we're talking about section 89, part 2, part D and E and H.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's
I
correct,
mentioned
councillor.
them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mentioned all of them.
Thank you for clarifying.
The act here is about 1987.
Should
Should be
right.
89.
So just to clarify, councillors, the motion should say section 89 2D, E and H of the Local Government Act 1989. So, correcting a typo in the papers, councillors. So the motion is before us, councillors. Procedural. I'll put the motion. Those for, those against. That is carried. The meeting is now closed to the public.